I think they're coming up on the screen. And thank them. Could we give them a round of applause, please? We are here today to share some information about the vision, the mission, and the goals of our school district, as well as some highlights of a few programs. And now I'd like to introduce again Dave Smazniak.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning, everybody. Before we begin our program today, I'd just like to make you aware, and I'm sure that your facilitators at each of the tables, our student facilitators, have also made you aware of your placemats, the lovely job that our print shop, Danette Monte, and all of our crew down there have done, and John Carlos. Our placemats today serve dual purpose. You can see that on there we have room for information for you to provide us some feedback. So throughout the course of the evening today, if you wouldn't mind, if you have any questions or concerns, jot them down. And when you leave today, we hope that you could please give those to our facilitators. And we thank you very much. On this slide, we have the list of names for all of our adult volunteer honorees. When I read their names, if the honorees would please stand and remain standing until all honorees are read. Principals will hand out the certificate to those individuals from their schools. And again, please hold a round of applause until the very end. Joe Rath, Roseanne Ingrao, Lori Kirschler, Marianne Burns, Linda Berger, Deborah Zamansky, Barbara Miller, Kathy Truslow, Denise Zastimpowski, Mary Lexner, Cindy Solly, Irma Fitzpatrick, John Fitzpatrick, Robin Kirschberger, Lisa Liss, Denise Pizanchin, Sue Warchala, Debbie Scarino, Teresa Tomzek, Melissa Scrutcham, Betty Ferrani, and Diane DeJoseph. Let's give them all a thank you for all of their work. Congratulations to you all.
The bottom line is schools cannot do it alone. In November of 2003, the district voters approved a $38 million investment in our community and school district. We are very proud of our capital improvement project, including those who are leading the district through its planning and development. As we begin this morning's program, we appreciate your support and we hope you enjoy it. I would like now to introduce Mr. James Heinberg, Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds. Jim?
Thank you very much. Where do I click to me? Okay, good morning, everyone. That's what happens when you sit in the back row. It takes too long to come back up. Thank you very much for having us here this morning. What we want to talk about a little bit is what we did over the summer, what I did this summer. This is where it all began when we started our capital improvement project, and we asked everyone in West Seneca to please consider this project and help us by authorizing a $38.6 million bond issue, which we did and we approved. And last year we started the project. We put the wheels in motion. We started trying to redo 12 of our school buildings. Our buildings are old, And it's just like your own home. You're not going to let your own home go for 20, 30, 40 years without doing anything, and that's what we're trying to do. We're going to try to take our buildings to a newer level. We want to take them on out for 25 to 30 more years. That's the important thing. So when we were here last year, we said to you, ladies and gentlemen, our project is about to begin, and we did one full year of work. We started by installing roadways. We had to do that for our new additions that we built. We started building our foundations. Potter, Clinton, Winchester, West Middle School, floors. We needed that concrete floor. Everything was happening while school was in session. Steel. It's a funny thing how the one thing that you don't think about takes the longest to get. We put the foundations in, you do all that, and then you have to wait for somebody to get the steel on site and the erection crew to put it up. That takes a long time, a lot of effort. Roofs, we redid the East Senior roof and we redid the Northwood Elementary School roof. Paving, Northwood, Clinton, Potter, a lot of new stuff, a lot of new things that we put in. Probably one of the biggest changes was at Winchester Elementary School, where we refinished a lot of the classroom floors. Those people that are here from Winchester can tell you that it made a huge difference in the appearance and lightened all those rooms. Remodeled the home ec rooms at West Middle, as well as other areas that you saw on various slides and pictures before this program began. This is a bit impressive. We had to bring a new pool air handling unit into West Middle School. We did a lot of boiler and other work that were part of the infrastructure of our school buildings. Ultimately, we ended up with 3 new libraries, Winchester, Potter, and Clinton. Hopefully the people that are using those now are enjoying that new space, and it's made a big difference in what we've been able to offer to kids. West Middle School had a whole new set of windows put in their gymnasium. I think it came out really well. It's an impressive look. It changed the way the whole gymnasium looks, and it added a whole lot of light. Classroom addition, there's 4 brand new rooms at West Middle School. I think it's made a big difference in what we do and what we offer at that school building. And at this time, I'm going to turn this over to Joe Casada. He's our project manager from Cannon Design.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for having us as your architect and being part of this great project in a first-class district. I'd like to talk a little bit about the design process for Phase 2. We started, I think, probably about 2 years ago when we started looking at what the vision at West Seneca was. And our group of designers and educational planners worked with your district administrators and your educational committees and other representatives on establishing what your vision is for your students, your educational program, and the maintenance of your buildings. So after extensive review of those programs and with those committees, we've come up with the plan that I think that it's starting to come and be implemented. And as Mike will talk a little bit later about how that's come to work. And the project is becoming very successful in our eyes at this point, and I hope in yours. One other thing I'd just really like to touch on is how is our involvement with your students and your Project Lead the Way program and our career days. Probably about a month, I guess in January, we had a full career day where we had 16 or 17 of your students throughout the district that are part of your Project Lead the Way that have come to our office. We took them on tours and tried to educate them on what is architecture, engineering, and construction, what's involved in becoming part of this profession. And we had professionals on our team that gave small presentations to each one of to each group of students, talking about different disciplines, architecture and what it takes to be an architect, what does it take to be an engineer, what does it take to be someone in human resources or accounting. And then we talked about your project specifically and tried to bring your students into your project and understand what we went through in order to get to our goals that were set by the district. And that's something that we were really that we're really proud of, and we try to continue with that, and we're going to continue as long as this project goes on, and then probably after, as much as we can be involved with Mr. Hathaway. It's a great program, and I applaud the district for having such a dedicated group that runs that program. And if I can turn it over to my partner, Mike Zacher from Simonelli, he'll talk about the construction.
Thanks, Joe. As Joe indicated, my name is Mike Zacher. I'm the project manager for LP Simonelli on the capital improvement project going on in the district. Mr. Heinberg spoke about some of our accomplishments that happened during phase 1. I'd like to give you a little update of what you should expect in phase 2. Mid-January, we received bids for the second phase of this project. It was very successful, and the project is on budget. Phase 2 construction schedule will take us through 2007. Basically, the way that the schedule is phased is that the work on the west side of the town will be done during 2006, and on the east side in 2007. Our first area of construction right now is at the bus garage. The buses and staff have relocated over this past spring break, allowing the asbestos abatement work to take place. Currently, we are working on the demolition and preparation for the new structural steel. Our site work will begin here in the near future as spring approaches us, and we're expecting to turn that building over in the middle of August. West Senior, a lot of activities happening at West Senior. There'll be a new fitness room addition. You'll expect to see some staging areas, foundation work to begin here this spring. And again, this area will be expected to be completed in August of 2006. One of the most impressive parts of this project is the music addition. This current structure here will be demolished over the April school break. We had completed some asbestos preliminary work done over this past February break in preparation for this to happen, to keep it less disruptive for the school district as they're in session. The foundation, structural steel, and other work will then progress, and we're expecting to have that occupied by the middle of August as well. Other work at West Senior includes family consumer science classroom renovations, mechanical system upgrades, window and roof replacements, and then parking lot improvements. Moving over to Allendale Elementary. Allendale, you'll see a new 4 classroom addition. We'll again beginning our temporary roads and staging areas and foundation work within the next couple of weeks there as well. Other work at Allendale in the renovations, there's a complete mechanical system upgrade for the entire building. General office, cafeteria, toilet room renovations, exterior window and door replacements, parking lot improvements, and then a pretty extensive renovation to the auditorium. West Elementary, also work to be scheduled in 2006, will receive a new front entrance vestibule. A new classroom and stage addition, which will be adjacent to the existing gym as you see it on the screen. Other work, West Elementary will have some gym renovations, mechanical upgrades. The entire building will have windows replaced. There will be new roof replacement in areas over the gym and the pool, and then parking lot improvements as well. That takes us the work that will happen in 2006. Moving over to 2007, we're going to go over to East Middle, East Elementary. East Elementary, there'll be a 4 classroom addition put onto that building, as well as at East Middle, 4 classroom addition that is. Other work at East Middle, East Elementary will include some mechanical work at the natatorium, locker, toilet room renovations, new lockers, home economics, science classroom, music classroom renovations and updates, and parking lot improvements. So there's a lot of improvements happening at that building. East Senior, again, we're putting on a new fitness room addition. There'll be auditorium renovations, family and consumer science, science classrooms updates, renovations, locker replacements over the entire building. And then the parking lot will be an extensive parking lot project at that building. Ebenezer School, there will be some handicap accessibility updates, new elevator, new stair tower, and some toilet renovations. Potters Road will get a new boiler in 2007. West Middle will get 3 new boilers again in 2007. And finally, Winchester Elementary, we'll go back to that building and finish the balance of the windows, the replacement windows, which will complete the building with new windows. And we'll also go back and complete the building with our new hot water system, mechanical system upgrades in that building. And that's a short synopsis of what's going to happen over the next 2 years. Tim?
Thank you, Mike. Ladies and gentlemen, bringing a project like this together is a business, and it's a business that we've tried to manage well for everyone here in West Seneca. It takes good planning, good design, and good project oversight. Everything has to come together for it to be done and done well. There are some people here today that I'd like to ask to stand who represent Cannon Design, in addition to my 2 colleagues who are here today from Cannon and Simonelli. Norm Boyer. Norm Boyer is from Simonelli. He's our project superintendent. He's the person that's on site and rattling the cages of these contractors every day. Bill Zagrafis is our lead architect from Cannon Design, and Carol Syracuse is a planner. And Carol was one of the people that were instrumental in helping us bring this all together. And I thank you all for coming today, and thank you for all your help and assistance. Whoop. You can't clap with the clicker in your hand. West Seneca, Cannon, Simonelli, we represent a team that's going to operate and try to do this like a business, just like many of you represent today. We want you to be proud and excited about what's happening here in West Seneca schools. And most of all, everyone in New York State is helping us to do this. Whether you like the system or not, it exists, and the best thing we can do is to go out and say, hey, because everyone's going to try to help us, we're going to get 71.4% of our investment back from everyone. So we can thank, every time you see someone from another part of the state, thank them for all of this hard work they're helping us do. When we are done, this is what you're going to see added in the school district, and this is only a partial list. We'll have 20 new classrooms, 2 fitness centers, a new stage at the West Elementary School, 1 new music room. There are 4 home and career rooms. There's 2 new music suites that will all be remodeled, 4 new libraries, business computer lab, and 14 of the science rooms in the school district will be remodeled in some fashion. That's a pretty impressive list, and it's a list that we're very proud to have to offer to everyone in this district. People have gone before us who have done an awful lot to set up these 12 facilities that we're working in. Administrators, staff, school boards, and most of all the community have built school buildings that we are all proud of. We're preserving the hard work that everyone has done before us. You can take these buildings, you can knock them down, you can build new buildings, but you lose the history. You lose that past history of what everyone has done here before. Our thrust is to preserve it. It's to make it better, and it's to do more for everyone in this district, and especially our kids. Mr. Bratz is constantly pushing us and talking about talking proud, bring it on, common ground. Those are all things that we work very hard on in the present. But what we want to do is we want to take our capital projects and we want to take everyone in this district to the future. And I thank you all very much.
And by the way, everyone, Mr. Heinberg leads the way, guiding the project for all of us here in the West Seneca Central School District. And to all the representatives this morning from Cannon and Simonelli, look around the room, please. We love the words "on budget" here in West Seneca, and we're all watching. Let's give them a round of applause one more time. The kids. I wanted to get some of our students out here this morning for a moment, and maybe they'll come out. Let me say that the setup this morning was all done yesterday by our custodial crew with an enormous amount of assistance from our students here at West Senior. At the table, there you go, here they are. These are our cooks this morning. Thank you very much. And our teachers that were helping out, Mrs. Keppel here, Mrs. O'Shea, and some others, making breakfast for 500 people, 450 people, cracking eggs up in the home ec room for the last couple of days. I won't say the last couple of weeks. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Okay, guys, go ahead. We recognize, Mr. Estalis recognized the music students this morning. I also wanted to be certain to point out to you the art displays that you'll find either right outside the gymnasium or in the cafeteria by some very talented art students here. We really have a proud past and a bright future, and we're so excited about the capital improvement project, and we thank all of you for supporting that project back in November of 2003. As Mr. Estalis pointed out, our mission and our vision very important to us. We've focused our objectives on improving student achievement and with a focus on continuous improvement, always trying to be just a little bit better. And I need to tell you that the Buildings and Grounds Department adopted a little slogan some time ago that I think is indicative of their focus on and their role on improving student achievement. We want to do our job so well that a teacher's only concern is teaching and a student's only concern is learning. And I appreciate the efforts of our support staff, our custodial staff, Buildings and Grounds, and we have a lot of young administrators. I hope they grow old. Right. Well, it's my job this morning to just set the stage for the next presenters and the next speakers. In public education, it's fairly easy sometimes to simplify what our role is, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And oh yeah, why can't you guys throw in a little bit of responsibility training? Well, last year we reviewed in a little more depth and detail a series of slides indicating decade by decade additions that were added to the plate, if you will, of the public educator and private educator, responsibilities that were given to them that continue to grow and to expand. And at your table, there are two handouts that you can pass around which go through these more detail, and you're not just seeing them flash up on the screen. We're flashing them on the screen right now so that you just get an idea of all the things that are added to the responsibility of those of us that run public education today, the Board of Education, myself, teachers in the classroom, Buildings and Grounds, and so on and so forth. And certainly it maybe has culminated most recently with the addition of so many tests. Right now, with this year, we just added tests, standardized state tests in grades 3, 5, 6, and 7 to add those assessments that were already taking place in 4 and 8. Well, this morning, based on feedback from you from last year, we wanted to expand on several of these topic areas. And up on the screen, you'll see safety education, advanced placement, adult ed we'll talk about this morning, character ed, drug and alcohol education, sex abuse prevention, stranger danger, and expanded internet education. We'd like to give you not a comprehensive view or summation of everything, of all the details there, but just a overview, if you will, of some of the highlights from these areas. We're going to start with the area of safety education, and you can see the presenters up on the screen. We'll start with Chief Guillen and with Officer Tim Pratt to talk about our school resource officer program. And as they work their way to the podium, I need to say that the school board, Mrs. Lezakowski, all the school board members, myself, about 3 years ago, met with the town board, and particularly Supervisor Clark, to engage them in a discussion of the school resource officer program. And without them, without Supervisor Clark, without the good relationship that the school board has with the town board, this program would not be in place. And I want to let you know, your kids, our kids, are an awful lot safer in school today because of this program. So with that, I'll turn it this morning to Chief Guillen. Chief, thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody, and I'd like to thank Mr. Bratz for this very early Saturday morning invitation for breakfast. I appreciate that very much. I'd like to recognize a couple people at our table first. Captain Dan Denz, he heads our Detective Bureau. Captain Denz. Retired Lieutenant Jim Loga, he retired in September. I'd like to begin by just thanking Mr. Bratz and the Town of West Seneca Town Board for supporting the School Resource Officer Program. A couple years ago, the police department and the school system recognized the potential benefits of having an officer assigned to the school systems full-time. The police department already had been active in the schools for a number of years, conducting the DARE program and a variety of other lecture programs for students from kindergarten right through their senior year in high school. But due to some unfortunate incidents that we all became aware of throughout the country, we partnered together to increase the safety of our school children and better serve our community. Thus, the School Resource Program was initiated. First, we started on a part-time basis, and once we realized the exceptional value this program had, we went forward constructing an agreement to have a police officer assigned to the West Seneca West and West Seneca East senior highs on a full-time basis. Officers are specially trained through the Bureau of Municipal Police in New York State to work in a school setting and meet all the unique challenges that they have. To that, we need unique officers. I believe it takes a very special person to be a police officer, and it takes a very special police officer to work in the school systems. I believe we have just that in West Seneca. Currently, we have Officer Ken Morano and Officer Tim Pratt assigned as school resource officers to your schools, providing service to the students. We're fortunate to have Officer Pratt with us today, who will speak a bit about the program. Officer Pratt is a 12-year veteran of the police department and uniquely qualified in various areas of law enforcement through training not only from the police department, but also from serving with the Coast Guard and working with our local Joint Terrorism Task Force. With that, I'll turn it over to Officer Pratt for a little more information about our School Resource Officer Program. Thanks, Chief.
Good morning. As Chief Guillen said, my name's Officer Pratt, and the other officer is Officer Ken Morano. I cover the west side of the school district, and Ken covers the east side of the district. You'll see his picture up here momentarily. He's a good-looking redheaded guy in the picture. I have had a unique opportunity to work in different areas of law enforcement, both federal and local. And one of the most rewarding choices I've had is having the opportunity to become a school resource officer. When I started doing it, I really wasn't sure what I was getting into. But within weeks, I realized it was a really good choice. And I think the reason why it was a good choice is the partnership that we have here in this community. We wouldn't be able to do it if it wasn't for the school district, the town, and the police department, and the parents all working together for the same cause. The School Resource Program, we do very, very different things. We're in the elementary, middle school, where we're teaching DARE. We do presentations. We are part of the bully prevention program, which will be talked about in a little while. We also do the peer counseling. And then the vast majority of the time is at the senior high, where we do presentations in classrooms varying from math class to social to health, guarding anything that has to do with law enforcement. And we also do mediations, where we work with the Student Services Department and help to mediate problems that the kids might be having and show them that there's peaceful alternatives to resolve their conflicts instead of resorting to violence. Like the chief said before, past history showed that these things do happen, and they could happen here, and we're trying to prevent that by being proactive instead of reactive. And I think before I go, one of the most important things we do is we interact with the staff and the students. And by interacting with them, it gives the students an opportunity to trust the police, to become friends with the police, and to realize that they can come to us with their problems. I can't tell you the amount of times that kids have come to either myself or other officers and said, hey, you know, I know that vandalism occurred here or a burglary happened. I happen to be there seeing that. And because of the connection that we've made with the schools, they're more willing to volunteer that information. Because the kids are the eyes and ears. They're everywhere out there. And they can be really an intricate part in preventing crimes in our town. So that's our picture. That's Officer Morano up there. That's at one of his DARE classes. And I'd just like to thank you for supporting this program. And hopefully it'll continue on. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Biehler. I'm the Director of Science. I also serve with Mr. Charles Lehman as the co-chair of our District Safety Committee. I have down here that I should say thank you, but as I look out at over 500 people that are our community and business partners on a beautiful, sunny morning on Saturday at 8:30, and I should probably be quiet or I'll be talking to myself here in a moment, it's kind of overwhelming. And if I just take a moment and take a look around and think about the fact that it's 8:30 on Saturday morning and we have this many people that are committed to the students in West Seneca. And I think that's quite remarkable. And again, I do thank you very, very much. When most of us were in elementary school, let me get my little clicker here, there we go. When most of us were in elementary school, safety amounted to the obligatory fire drills and the occasional duck and cover drill. But as you have begun to see, schools are facing some new challenges. Of utmost concern is the safety and welfare of our students at all times, and particularly in the time of crisis. Over the past several years, West Seneca schools have been working very closely with each of the fire districts in West Seneca, the West Seneca Police Department, and the West Seneca Office of Disaster Preparedness to develop coherent plans that meet the needs of a variety of potential emergencies. Fire drills have transitioned into evacuation drills. These evacuation drills include options such as simply exiting the building to an exterior rendezvous point, or sheltering in place, or relocation at a secure and sanitized locale, or an off-site evacuation. This has necessitated the formation of building-level emergency response teams. These are teams of teachers and staff who have received additional training and assume leadership positions during times of emergency. These teams are crucial to the development and effective execution of emergency plans during times of crisis. This fall, several of our schools, working with local emergency personnel, evacuated off-site. Depending on the circumstances, this may have meant that students and staff simply walked to a predetermined location that had been pre-planned, or that students and staff were shuttled with limited buses to locations up to a mile away. Now, simply moving anywhere from 400 to 1,600 students from one building to another under a time constraint may not seem like a daunting task, but here are a few of the challenges that we experienced. First and foremost, accounting for all the students. That is, making sure that all the students leave the school and are accounted for at the evacuation site. Now, okay, that may sound simple and pretty basic, but at any given moment, schools have dozens of students away from their primary teachers in special settings, such as occupational therapy, physical therapy, hearing therapy, speech lessons, reading groups, music lessons, lunch, the bathroom, the nurse's office, just to name a few. We also need to be prepared for students who are absent that day, came in late to school, had early dismissals. Once at the evacuation site, a 100% accountability check occurs and records are matched up to ensure that every single student is where they should be. Now, I don't know about you, but I have 3 children, and just getting them all from the house and to the mall and back is sometimes quite challenging. And my wife would be quite upset if I lost one. Imagine the anxiety that a kindergarten teacher experiences moving 25 5-year-olds. They don't know, the teachers don't know, nor do the students when this will happen. From school, in the rain, because it's never a nice day on these days, under time constraints, potentially on 2 different buses, to a building the students have never been in before, and the whole time they're assuring the students that this is just a fun field trip that we're all on. Some other issues, such as transporting students with special needs, those that are wheelchair-bound, have ambulatory issues or medical conditions, exacerbated by anxiety, climate changes, or changes in routines. How about transporting and accounting for several suitcases of student medications, along with dosing requirements, medical records, and establishing a temporary nursing facility? We also need to relocate the main office and establish a system for releasing students to appropriate guardians. Dozens of students in all of our buildings have some very serious custody issues. No longer can Joey's grandmother come in to pick him up from school. She has to have identification and be on file as an individual who we can release custody to. Now, these files are electronic. We don't have access to them in the event of a power outage or an emergency relocation. So we keep and transport paper copies and appropriately sorted to keep them appropriately sorted to ensure that we can get the task done. Now, as you can see in this slide, the execution of these drills provided opportunities for our students and staff to interact in authentic settings with emergency personnel and then debrief, and we go over and remediate the plans. The evacuation drills were highly successful due to the commitment of our schools and our local emergency personnel to work together on the development of comprehensive emergency plans. At this time, I'm going to ask that all members of the fire service, those who have volunteered a tremendous amount of time to the safety of our students, our law enforcement officers, any members of our building emergency response teams, our school nurses, or any other individual who assisted in the development of a building level or district level emergency response plan to please stand up. Come on, don't be shy. Thank you very much. Now, assuming a command role and a unified command structure is something new to most administrators. It's not covered in Administrator 101 or Administrator 601 for that matter, yet it's a new role for our school personnel. Working together with the town of West Seneca schools are committed to emergency preparedness. We've begun an extensive training program for administrators and supervisors to be trained in Department of Homeland Security and Federal Emergency Management Association courses in Incident Command and the National Incident Management System. We believe we are one of the first school districts in Western New York to undertake this training and are proud of the positive relationships we have with our hardworking local emergency responders. Again, thank you very much.
Good morning, welcome. About 20 years ago, I was a student here at West Seneca Senior High School. And I remember graduation day, I was paranoid. I was very worried that going to Kleinhans, you had to walk up the stage to grab your diploma, and I thought for sure I was going to trip on a stair. However, this morning's a little different. Now I just had to worry about tripping on cords going across the gym floor. I'm here to talk to you about internet safety. And it's our responsibility together as parents, as a school district, to address these issues. It's been a hot topic in the news. Many of you have heard about MySpace.com, and some of the unfortunate incidents have occurred with that web page. But that's only one of those web pages that do that. So what approach we take with cyber safety is a 3-tiered approach. It's important for us, first of all, to use technology to protect ourselves from technology. Secondly, we train our teachers and our students on how to access technology safely. And the last thing is we've been running programs to raise community awareness. Now, something that parents may not know and students find out very quickly is we do not receive an internet signal purely directly from the internet. It actually passes through several filters. And if you look at the screen on the center of the gym, the signal first passes through a BOCES filtering system. We pay BOCES to filter out objectionable websites. But in case something happens to trickle through, you can see that the next barrier is a district security setting barrier, which our technicians at Ebenezer can tweak those settings to filter even to a deeper level to ensure that things aren't passing through, and then it gets to our machines. And when a student, a teacher, an administrator may accidentally go to a site that's objectionable, this is the message that pops up on their screen. So it stops them and it says, hey, you can't go there, access denied. So that's how we use technology one way to protect ourselves from ourselves. Regarding instruction, we've already trained teachers. We've already trained departments. So you've seen this in the newspaper that, oh, people need to get on board, training. And Mark, who just spoke, he was the former director of instructional technology. He got this ball rolling last year. So last year there were enrichment teachers and library media specialists trained on how to use curriculum that we use with students. We train teachers in our Teacher Center on iSafe courses. And you may ask, what is iSafe? iSafe is curriculum developed by a national organization that looks at a variety of topics. It might look at cyber safety with predators, phishing scams, and fraud. And all of this program is a curriculum that's worked K through 12. Now, one of the most important things I think we need to do is make parents aware. Obviously, the best way, if you recall, I always heard the saying that if you want someone to program your VCR, give it to a 12-year-old. They'll always be ahead of us on technology, but we have a responsibility to at least try to raise an awareness of what's going on. And we've had some district-wide events. We've had something called Taking Off the Gloves at East Senior High School. We had middle school parent seminars at East and West Middle School just last month. We had PTA presentations where we travel to each building and meet with PTA and the parents at the PTA meetings. And we're planning a hands-on workshop at one of the high schools in May of 2005 where we're going to turn off the filters and show parents what is out there. Because obviously with the filters on, we'd be bringing you in and you wouldn't be able to get to anything. So we're going to ask our network administrator to disable for that night that particular room, and we're going to show you some things that are out there, and then we're going to lock it back down. So we thought a hands-on workshop would be very beneficial. And one more program, which Mr. Bratz will briefly explain, is we're going to have an FBI agent coming in regarding cyber safety. So thank you for your time, and here's Mr. Bratz.
At your table, there should be a flyer indicating this event. We have Holly Huber, who's an excellent speaker, a local FBI agent who works with cyber porn and cyber crime and particularly focuses on catching what they call enticers and travelers, people that travel the country trying to hook up, if you will, with an underage child. And this program will be held over at East Senior High School, 7 o'clock, May 10th, I believe, is the night, and we want to fill that place so that we can educate our community as to the dangers involved with some very, very heinous crimes taking place. So, Darrell, thank you very much for the excellent job that you've done working with our technicians and ensuring our student safety while working on the internet during school time. I'd like to take a moment and ask Mrs. Lezakowski to stand up. I'd like to ask Mrs. Dalbo, another member of our Board of Education, to stand up, please. Mrs. Bussey, if you would stand up. Mr. Lazara. You've met Mr. Ostalis and Mr. Smazniak. I'm missing somebody. Who am I missing? Did I miss someone? Oh, Mr. Iwanko. Mr. Iwanko, please stand up. Well, these people, I want you to know, when I meet with them, there's nothing, and I'd like you to remain standing, the board members, there's nothing more important to them than student safety. And if we could go to the next slide with our academies, please, with the group, there we go. If you look up on the slide, you'll see a list of academy programs that we've started here in West Seneca many years ago, and Jerry Hathaway in the back of the room deserves so much credit. With all the focus on student achievement, and that is our focus, some school districts have lost track of the importance of vocational training, vocational education, and our school board has not. Mr. Hathaway has been a great leader for us in this area, and I want you to know that late last year, the school board received recognition from the Erie County Association of School Boards for their leadership, demonstrated leadership in the area of vocational and educational training. So let's give them a round of applause. Our next area this morning will focus on character, education, and drug and alcohol education. Our speakers will be Reverend Klatt with the West Seneca Community of Churches, Mrs. Spitzer from West Middle School, Mr. Lehman, and Mrs. Netzel. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Reverend John Klatt, representing the West Seneca Community of Churches. Let's give him a round of applause.
I'd like to thank Superintendent Bratz and all of you for the opportunity to be here to speak for just a few minutes about healthy communities and healthy youth. Before I do that, I'd like to introduce those at the West Seneca Community of Churches table, way in the back there in the corner, if they could stand. Denise Knight, representing the Seneca United Methodist Church. Reverend Ralph Anderson from Ebenezer United Church of Christ. Don and Louis Kinner from 14 Holy Helpers. Round of applause for them. And Shannon, our youth representative. I'd like to also thank the West Seneca School District for working with the community of churches. Gene Kovach and John Carlos are usually at our meetings, and I think this is a very commendable way to work together in the community to develop healthy youth. And that's what we're here for, that this community of churches works toward the development of assets that help young people grow and thrive. The Search Institute is an organization out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, that developed a program to ascertain the attributes that allow young people to thrive and grow into mature adults. And what they came up with was 40 assets, they call them, developmental assets, that across the board, beyond any particular location, racial difference, or anything else, always showed up as the means by which young people were able to develop what's necessary to be mature adults. And these categories are divided into two general, both external and internal assets. And among those external assets are support, empowerment, boundary and expectations, and constructive use of time. And internal assets are commitment to learning, positive values, social competencies, and positive identity. And I'm not going to go into detail, but that gives you just a general idea of what the Search Institute found. Today's situation is that there may be some sense of misdirection about what's most important for young people and adults working with young people, for parents. What do youth need most of all? Perhaps less of the things of life and more attention and support from adults who care. And here I'm suggesting, and I think the Search Institute would also suggest that the challenge of nurturing young people is something that ought to be considered, yes, primarily for parents, that's their responsibility, but in a way all adults, all of us, are to care enough to look young people in the eye, to learn their names, to care about them, and that's our job, all of us together. So how did we get here where there may be less of an emphasis on those kinds of relationships between adults and youth? And here I'm not here to promote guilt. I suppose we all carry enough of that around as it is, and certainly parents aren't perfect. I have 2 children, and I know for sure that if they were here, they would tell you how I'm not a perfect parent, my kids. But anyway, why does this happen? Well, we all are busy, and we're pulled in many different directions. And one of the reasons I love the Bible is that it's full of stories about less than perfect parents and children and families. And, to me, that's very comforting because it's a real life kind of issue that we all face together. The challenge is to move beyond our hurts, to live with forgiveness and courage and grace. Healthy communities, healthy youth. The 40 developmental assets that I spoke of earlier came up with some specific connections between the faith community and the task of raising well-adjusted young people. And that one of those was specifically the religious community, that young persons spend 1 or more hours per week in activities in religious institutions. This is not my opinion. This is not the West Seneca Community of Churches speaking. This is the Search Institute, which found that young people who are well-adjusted and who grow well are part of a religious community. Some of the other values there was constructive use of time, positive values, that is restraint. Young persons believe it is important not to be sexually active or to use alcohol or other drugs. And equality and social justice, young person places high values on promoting equality and reducing hunger and poverty. Again, these are assets that the Search Institute came up with, and they're certainly assets that the churches also believe in and trust in. I read an article once where college professors found that the students in their classes who knew something about justice and had a sense of the importance of justice in relationships and in the wider community and in the world were kids that had come from churches, because that's where they learned it. Asset building, healthy youth through healthy communities. Again, these 40 developmental assets are one way to evaluate the Christian education program of congregations. So those of us who are also now part of our religious communities can look at these assets and use them in our Christian education programs. And finally, that I would simply encourage that we all become active. And here's a picture of some fine-looking young men. Reverend Ralph Anderson, Jeff Nowak from the Seneca United Methodist Church, and Pat Eppolito from Roman Catholic. And here's finally some pictures, just some feel-good kind of pictures, I guess. So these are some of the young people that mostly are from St. John's. Sorry I don't have much pictures from other congregations, but we can just... And finally, the last one, building assets for youth, the faith community, involved leaders, adults who care, healthy communities, and healthy youth, all working together. Finally, I have some brochures, and if you're interested, these are brochures that describe the West Seneca Community of Churches and what's in the community. And also, if you're interested in the 40 developmental assets, I have a website and a document that will help you put you in touch. See me afterwards, or perhaps I can put these out somewhere. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning. My name is Anne-Marie Spitzer, and I am the assistant principal at West Middle School. And I am here this morning with Matt Bystrack, who is a school social worker in West Seneca. And we are here to tell you about a program that we have in place at West Middle that is just a small facet of our character education program, and that is addressing the issue of bullying. Mr. Rob Lairs, who is a school counselor at West Middle, actually developed the program many years ago because he identified the need for it. And he was very insightful when he looked at other programs that were already around addressing the issue of bullying. If you look at the graph up here, there's only a very small percentage of students in a building that are identified as the bullies. And then you have a small percentage of students that are being bullied, but take a look at the larger population of students that are the bystanders. And that's the focus of the program that we have in place at West Middle. It's really to focus on those bystanders and get them involved. Matt is going to tell you a little bit about the format of the program.
Thank you, Mrs. Spitzer. We start off the program by talking about some of the hot topics, sort of setting the stage. Why are we here? The program itself runs about 2 hours, so it's a pretty good chunk of the school day. We talk a little bit about Columbine, some of the other incidents that you read about in the newspapers or see on TV. We have a student who's been bullied or harassed. In some cases, even results in possible suicides, things like that. So we sort of set the stage there. Then from there, we actually have a video that we show the kids. It's pretty new, pretty relevant, and we get a lot of good feedback from the kids on it that sort of illustrates some of the different kinds of bullying that take place, whether it be exclusion or physical or verbal, whatever it is. After that, give the kids a minute or two to sort of think about that, decompress a little bit, because it's a pretty intense video. The West Seneca Police Department actually comes in and talks about bullying in terms of the legal ramifications. It's harassment. I mean, as adults, we wouldn't put up with someone doing some of the things that these kids do to each other. So we want the kids to know that there can be legal consequences to some of the things that they do to each other, even if they're just a bystander and don't step up to help. From there, we actually break into small groups of about 10 or 12 kids or so. Each group has a facilitator, an adult, whether it's a teacher, a social worker, school counselor, psychologist, everybody pitches in. that basically sits down with the kids in a question. Each group has a question, a couple of the questions, like what are the different kinds of behaviors, typical bullying behaviors you see with between girls or between boys, or where does it happen most often? What are some things the schools can do to make things better or to deal with specific types of bullyings? And actually the West Middle PTO has been great every year. For the past 3 years we've been doing this. They've always provided like donuts and juice and things like that, and they'll either bring it to us or they get the kids right in and out of there. So they've been great, and the kids love that. That's a definite plus. After that, and that takes about 15-20 minutes or so, the kids get a good amount of time to talk about it. They brainstorm a little. They come back to the larger group, and we walk around with microphones, and most middle school kids love microphones. Basically, they get a chance to go up and report out all the results they came up with, or all the answers they came up with to their particular questions. So they get a chance to say, listen, this is what we think is happening for this particular issue, and to go around the whole room. After that, somebody, whether it's Mr. Lairs or myself, whoever it is, will read. There's a story from Chicken Soup for the Soul, if any of you are familiar with the book. And it's a great story, and it talks about a young man in his freshman year in high school who was very near to committing suicide because he felt he had no one to turn to. He felt he had been bullied nonstop. And about one act of kindness by a complete stranger that turned out to be his best friend ended up saving him. It's a great story, and I didn't bring the story to read, but it's a fantastic story from Chicken Soup for the Soul. And after that story, you could hear a pin drop. You'll have 100, 110, 120 kids sitting in a room, plus all the staff, and you can hear a pin drop. We've had kids get so moved by hearing this story, they've cried, whatever. So it's honestly, so far the program really seems to have created that culture that we're talking about, not trying to get to the people that are doing the bullying or the victims, trying to get the other people to stand up and actually be supportive of them.
So what is the key to success of this program? Matt had mentioned about the culture of the building and the climate of the building. The culture of the building is really how that building operates, the procedures that are in place. And the climate of the building is that feeling that you get, how we treat kids when you walk into the building. You just know what kind of a building it is. And those two generally go hand in hand. And where they go hand in hand, it creates an element of trust. And that is the key. Kids trust us to come to us. Kids trust us and know that we will keep that information confidential. And kids trust us and know that we will do something about it. It's the key to having this program work. Key to building relationships. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Charles Lehman. I'm Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Services, and with me this morning is Pat Netzel, Secretary to the Superintendent of Schools. We're here to talk to you about child welfare, specifically some initiatives that our district has undertaken in behalf of our children. Since 1996, New York's Megan's Law has required convicted sex offenders to register their whereabouts. Notice of such sex offenders' location is given to law enforcement agencies. Mrs. Netzel will be able to fill you in on the role of your school district and how it plays its role out in Megan's Law's process. Mrs. Netzel?
Hi. After we receive a notice of a level 2 or a level 3 sex offender from the police department, it's been our practice to send this notification to our parents. This entails sending the notice to our printing department for bulk mailing to all district residents. Our building administrators are next, and they in turn send it out to the staff in their building. In an effort to enhance the safety of our community, we also send notices to the staff in the administrative offices and transportation department. As a courtesy, we also send a notice to the surrounding area schools, as well as to our head of security and attendance officer.
Thanks, Pat. Just stay right here. How many of these notices go out every time you send one out? When we get a notice, it comes to you, how many sheets of paper are going out there?
Approximately 25,000. And also, as we work with partners, our website also has various links on this topic.
Thanks so much, Pat. You know, I know, and people in district office know all the work that this lady does for us, and obviously Mr. Bratz. But I think thanks to this little presentation, all of you know the kind of work that Pat Netzel does for all the children here in West Seneca. Thank you very much. You know, along with Pat, there are a number of other personnel that work in the area of pupil services. And I kid people. I say that, you know, we're all part of pupil services in somewhere. And I always keep promising that I'm going to get them the T-shirt, you know, so that they can join us. We've got a number of school counselors here. If you just kind of maybe want to raise your hand where you are. I know I've seen some of you. You can hide in the corner if you like. There's some school counselors. We also have some school nurses, some social workers. I know that you're here too. So come on, give me a wave. I know that you're here somewhere. And school psychologists. These individuals, you know, these very few professionals provide a level of support for our students and our families. In fact, while none of them look any near their years of experience, combined, they bring over 400 years of experience in their disciplines to the children in West Seneca. You know, we're pleased to have all of them and and the number that came here to represent today. I appreciate you coming on this sunny Saturday morning. You know, above in the overhead, if you can kind of click me over there. You know, here's the interesting note. This 20-year-ago alum of this school probably played a few pranks, because I do happen to know that Pat Netzel got an unfair blame for a certain slide there, Mr. Bratz. So you're going to see a sampling of some student services. You know, these samplings that we have came from our professionals, this 400-year experienced group, and you'll see them popping up. You know, they work from health and welfare programs to individual counseling. They work from character education initiatives to stress management groups. They work from career days to bully proofing. You know, the pupil service department really does make our children's welfare our top priority. Now it's my pleasure to turn the program back to the Superintendent of Schools, Mr. James Bratz.
Put the last one back up. Tying Mr. Lehman's message in with my earlier comments, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic, responsibility, just some of the, it's very difficult to read or to see, but hopefully you're getting a sense of all of the different responsibilities, all of the different areas that school districts, school boards, school officials are responsible for today. Mrs. Netzel plays a key role in communicating out through everyone in our community the sex offender notifications and so forth. That's one example of the importance that our staff plays in making certain that the West Seneca Central School District is responsive to the needs of the community. I mentioned earlier those people that were helpful this morning with the breakfast and some of the people here. Please give our staff a round of applause. They're awesome. Our Board of Education works very, very hard to keep their ear to the rail, if you will. And there's a group of students that name themselves the House of Representatives. Some of those students are here with us this morning. And I'd like to note Mr. Lazara, Mrs. Dalbo, Mrs. Bussey, and Mr. Iwanko. Meet with these individuals. If you could put their names up for me, please. Another prank or what? One more. There's a little picture, but the next page. Okay, there we go. Can we have these students stand up, please, and be recognized, as well as the board members that meet with them? Please, students, stand up. House of Representatives, Mrs. Dalbo, Mr. Lazar, Mrs. Bussey, please stand. Thank you. They meet monthly with these students, and it's great dialogue over time, and trust me when I tell you, they're very frank and candid conversations. I'm going to very quickly this morning give you a little academic report, very, very quickly, we could move to the first slide. This will give you an example of our progress on the English Language Arts 4 examination, our 4th grade exam. Each score that you see is a 3-year average. So on the far left, you'll see 72.2. That's an average of the performance in the years 2001 to 2003. And you can see for each year as we move onward how we have improved in the ELA 4. In the English Language Arts 8, you can also see the progress that we've made. Again, 3-year averages, moving forward, getting better academically day after day. Math 4, the significant change, improvement that we've made there, continuously looking to improve our scores, and again, progress at Math 8. I hope that this gives you some picture of the academic progress. We are on track here in this school district academically. We are making progress, and we are getting better every single day. You should be very proud of our Regents diploma ratio. On the far right-hand side, 91%. I remember a day when people said, well, we'll never get above 50%. 91% of the students in this school district achieve a Regents diploma, and we are recognized, a recognized leader, as I already mentioned, in the field of vocational education. So it's not at the expense of that very important area. Staying with our theme now this morning, or one of the categories, I'd now like to introduce Terry Brancato, who will talk to us a little bit about our GED program, and that will be followed by Mrs. Kovac, who will talk with us about our Gifted and Talented program. Mrs. Brancato, welcome.
I do have to lower this mic just a tad. The Alternative High School Equivalency Preparation Program is a district-sponsored, New York State Education Department-sanctioned program to prepare students to take the exam for the General Education Diploma, the GED. The program was originally proposed by Mr. Smazniak, who was also the chief examiner for our test center, researched and evaluated by a committee of district and community volunteers according to the New York State guidelines, and it received approval to begin in the 2001-2002 school year to run under the direction of the Community Education Department, which is also Department of Pupil Services. The program began operation in September '01 with 1 instructor and 1 clerk. Program hours were set at 6 to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday to meet the state guidelines of 12 instructional hours per week. This is one of the few programs in Western New York that operates in the evening, which met both the need for adequate space, a location without distractions, and accommodating students who may have jobs during the day. We have taken great pains to be sure the high school principals, counselors, and administrators were familiar with the goal of the program, which is to provide an alternative route to a high school credential for those students who are in danger of dropping out. The target population for the program includes only district residents, as each school district can decide whether or not to offer the option. Students are eligible up to age 21 or receipt of the diploma. Students must have completed the school year in which they turn 16 to be eligible. The program has been designed as a last resort, not an easy out, and students who are considered for the program often have long-standing attendance or behavior issues or conditions that have affected their ability to complete the Regents standards for graduation. Students must be recommended to the program by their counselor, approved by their principal, with final approval of the Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Services and the Superintendent. Some students also have to be approved by the New York State Education Department by submission of a variance from the usual credit guidelines. These have included students with special education needs who do not wish to receive an IEP diploma, but who are performing at a lower level than the usual alternative program guidelines allow. Typically, our students have achieved less than 10 high school credits, but are juniors by their cohort class. The majority are male, and the average age is 17. This year, we have seen an increase in the number of students with special needs, up to 50% of the total class. The instructional staff has grown to accommodate the needs of the students, both due to the number of students referred and the needs of the students themselves. We have a minimum of 2 instructors at any time, with an additional special education teacher working one-on-one as needed. Our ratio is approximately 1 to 7 at any time. I'd just like to recognize a couple of our teachers who are here today, if they'd like to stand. Christina Ellis and Nan Murphy, and our alternative program clerk, Nancy Grismella. Just like to give them a hand because they work very, very hard. Okay. From our beginnings with only 4 students in the first year to the 04-05 year when we had 35, we've maintained an excellent percentage of those who pass the GED exam, after an average of about 4 months in the program. Students who are still not ready to take the exam at the end of the school year can request to remain in the program until they are ready, so they can carry over to the next year. Readiness means passing 3 practice exams at near mastery level. The district allows us to recognize our GED recipients at a meeting of the school board, usually in June, and we also hold a class reception to acknowledge the hard work that went into each student's success. We have 2 of our recent diploma recipients here today, and one of our current students. I'd like them to stand. Jason Bonetto, Ashley Danzy, and Corey Noya, who I always mispronounce his last name. Okay. Thank you for coming. I'd also like to acknowledge the support of our advisory committee, and I have several members here today for the Community Education Advisory Committee, if they'd just like to stand. Dom, everybody? These people work very hard to help us establish a good program, both for the students and for the regular adult community education program, and I'd just like to recognize that they're here. The Alternative High School Equivalency Program is an excellent example of the district's commitment to No Child Left Behind, and it has received the continuous support of the administration and the school board, for which we thank them today. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jean Kovach, and I am the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. And I'm supposed to have 3 teachers here with me, but they've abandoned me they had a better offer, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. In our ongoing efforts to improve student achievement, we recently reconfigured what was referred to as our Gifted and Talented program. It is now our Student Enrichment Program, and it's much more inclusive than it has been in the past. We have enrichment teachers at every elementary building and in our middle schools. And these teachers provide additional opportunities for challenge for all of our students in those buildings. In addition to that specific program, we have enriched courses at our middle and high schools, and of course we have our advanced placement courses at our high school. We have advanced placement courses in art, the sciences, English language arts, social studies, and math. There are brochures on the table in those little bags that are on the tables. And I noticed that if you look in the brochure, what you see actually in the inside are really examples of our sort of extended enrichment program. You also have seen examples here today with our family consumer science students, our music students, the artwork, the technology. All of those are examples of enrichment that those kinds of opportunities are provided to our students. What I'd like to do is just briefly share with you an example of some of the specific enrichment programs that are happening right now in our elementary and middle schools. And one of the areas that we've become more involved in, I guess I would say, is the area of academic competitions. And you see up on the screen right now a slide that says Odyssey of the Mind. We sent 35 elementary students to Odyssey of the Mind local competition, regional competition a couple of weeks ago up in Wilson. 7 teams, 5 teams, 7 students on each team. And the reason that the 3 teachers who were supposed to be here with me today are not here is because as we speak, all of those students are in Binghamton participating in the state competition. All of our teams advanced from the regional competition. Odyssey of the Mind is an opportunity for students to use critical thinking skills to solve problems. And I'm not going to go through what you're seeing up on the screen. You can take a look at the screens as they go through them. But these are some examples of the problems that the students had, and you'll see slides of pictures of the teams who are, again, as I said, are right now competing in Binghamton. So we're looking forward to that. It's also my understanding that several of the teams have already indicated their commitment to win in Binghamton and go on to the national level in Iowa. So we'll be looking forward to that. Some would say that the core academic areas are English, math, science, and social studies. And to some degree, that is the case. Another area that we have become involved in is a specific competition called Math is Everywhere. That is a regional competition that will take place in the spring, and it's organized through BOCES. And it's grown quite a bit in West Seneca. We started out with a very small group attending, and this year we have 165 students between our elementary and middle schools who have committed to participate in the Math is Everywhere competition. Additionally, our enrichment teachers at those levels have made a commitment to be regional facilitators for that competition. So that hasn't occurred yet. It will happen this spring, but I just wanted you to make you aware again of the numbers of students that we've been able to reach out to by expanding our enrichment program. So we're really excited about that as well. The whole issue of what's a core academic and what isn't, Mr. Bratz mentioned reading, writing, and arithmetic. I would say that the core academic areas for the West Seneca Central School District are all of those areas. It's not just math, science, English, and social studies. We work very hard to include all of that, all that's in this brochure, all of those groups that you've seen here today that were involved in preparation and entertainment for this breakfast. We believe that that is part of our core academic area, and that's why the slides that Mr. Bratz showed about our ongoing improvement, that's why that's happening, because we are focusing on the whole child and we are providing this diversified education for our children. Thank you.
As Mr. Bratz has stated, the progress of the West Seneca Central School District could not be possible without our staff. On behalf of the Board of Education, and more importantly, on behalf of our students, we want to thank our staff. You do make a difference every day. Would the following educators please stand and remain standing until all the names are being called? And please hold your applause till the end of the list, please. Patricia Halicki, Karen Letko, Raymond Ball, Paul Glico, Ellen Wolf, Marlene Vento, Carol Seil, Ann Rukoff, Sharon Wright, George Olmsted, Thomas Shriver, and Sharon Mampy. Would you please join me in a round of applause?
In addition to those just named certificated educators, we have members of our employee staff who are known as classified staff, but they are also educators in our minds and in our hearts. The following individuals are also recognized for their contributions to the services of the youth of our community. And again, when I read their names, if they would please stand and remain standing till the end. Cynthia Malezo Schwartz, Margaret Dolan, Donna Brennan, Jean Eisenman, Diane Marcello, Patricia Herr, Tina Korowski, Joanne Piatko, Mary Lou Moore, Mary Huber, Michael Lagata, Kevin May, William Spalding, George Obad, Laurel Shunk, and Joyce Dubois. Thank you all. As the slide says, the bottom line, schools cannot do it alone. Those named that stood up at the beginning of the program, the parent volunteers, those named just recently by Mr. Estalis, the educators, and those just named the support staff, and because of all of you here today, we have the success that we can give to our students of this district. We thank you all for your support. We thank you all for coming here today. On behalf of the members of the Board of Education and on behalf of all of the children, thank you for your support. Thank you for coming today. Drive carefully. We appreciate your attendance. Have a good day.